Greetings, 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 and welcome to another informative and educational and entertaining, enlightening episode of Caribbean Classroom. First of all, I have to acknowledge there's this group that I work with. We recently did our annual Mother's Day luncheon. The St. John's Educators Scholarship Fund. We did our annual Mother's Day luncheon on Sunday, and we had some very positive responses. There's a lady who I need to show you this. She makes baskets, and one of our helpers, she sold over 16 or more tickets, and so we're giving her a gift. We didn't have this gift for her on Sunday, so we're going to show her this gift. I'm showing you this gift. This is a gift that is prepared by a young lady from Queens Village. Her name is Marjorie Bibbins. I think she calls it Margie's Gifts and Things. And if you're looking for a nice little package of something nice to give somebody, check out Margie Gifts and Things. She donated three of these. She donated 3 of these to the St. John's Educators Scholarship Fund that we were able to hand out as part of the fundraiser. Now, let me just give you a little background on St. John's Educators Scholarship Fund. What we do is we raise funds, and we are able to submit or pay for scholarships for young people whose they are able to pass the entrance exams, but sometimes they find that the parents are unable to pay for them to go to school. And even if they do pay for them for a few months or a few semesters, they're not able to maintain it for the 5 years, because in Grenada, high school students go to high school for 5 years in order before they can graduate. And so you have a lot of students who are able to pass exams but unable to maintain it. And so this organization, the St. John Educators Scholarship Fund, we raise monies and have created a scholarship fund, and we're able to hand it over to these parents of these children. While they don't have to pay for school fees, but in many cases they do have to buy books, they have to buy uniform, because we still wear uniform back home. They have to pay transportation, and in many cases they have to feed themselves. And so this scholarship money goes towards feeding themselves. I have to give big props to the young man who we honored, Dr. Roland Glean, who is out of Midwestern, and he pledged $1,000 on the spot for us. I mean, I was trying to get Donald to advertise in the book, but he's so busy I can't catch up with him for not a minute. But anyway, I catch him tonight, so I know he's going to write a check for me for the St. John's Scholarship Fund. Sure. We have 9 students right now. One of them is set to graduate in June of next year. And the book, we were able to for the first time, put together a book. And very, very, very proud, Carnes Modest and myself, along with Peter Boyk and Lawanda Modest and Cassandra Modest. And also, I'm missing his name. I know I was going to miss one person out. But anyway, you know who you are. The names are here. Why am I messing myself up like that? Peter Boyk. Oh, Anthony Walker. I couldn't remember. Anthony and Ann Walker. Very, very supportive. They all of them came together with us, and this year, and we were able to pull this off. We don't know what how financially successful we were, because we have not tallied yet, but we know that we had a good turnout, and the journal was well represented. We had some very good sponsors and advertisers in here, and so we do this every year on Mother's Day, specifically for the children who are trying to enter high school back home. A very good friend of mine, if you're a jazz enthusiast, you will know this name when I mention it. She passed a couple days ago. Her name, Phoebe Jacobs. She died recently. Phoebe Jacobs, you might not know that she was a publicist and was one of Louis Armstrong's, at least she was actually his personal secretary. And she organized almost everything that surrounded jazz. She's the epitome of jazz, if you will. She is the one instrumental in creating the Louis Armstrong house and archives, and so that you can visit that in Corona, where his former home is now the archives / the visiting center. And there's plan to build a welcome center and expand it. It's administrated by Queen's College, and so you could always check out Louis Armstrong House Phoebe Jacobs has been very much a part of that. She died at 93 years old, and one of the greats. When there's no one in jazz of any on any level who does not know who this woman is. I mean, she's a phenomenon unto herself. The Brookville Park, 2012 Brookville Park Tennis Club, they're starting that tennis program, or have started a tennis program. I'll give you a name and a number that you can call if you have a young person and interested in them getting involved with tennis. You want to give that person, Mr. Ambrose. Eric Ambrose is his name. 347-444-6849, 347-444-6849. Eric Ambrose, he is the coordinator of the youth program for the Brookville Park Tennis Club. So if you have a young person who you think is interested in tennis or would like them to be interested in tennis, give this young man a call, and he can talk to you. They meet on, I think they meet on Saturdays at Brookville Park. And if you don't know where Brookville Park is, well, that means you don't need to know. That's not what it's a joke, it's a joke. Brookville Park is over there by the airport, just on the shadows of JFK Airport in Rosedale, in that section of Queens that is known as Rosedale. So you might want to give Eric a call. They have an email address, Brookville Tennis, that's brookvilletennis@aol.com. Give them a shout. Let me just take this time and say to you, there is a new thing that is going on now. If you read the paper recently, you would see a lot of conversation about tickets and why the police are giving you tickets. And this summer is going to be special because the police will be out in force. Let me just give you this little piece of advice here. The New York Police Department, NYPD, they respond to noise from neighbors. They respond to noise from clubs and bars and parks and stores and businesses throughout the community. If you have street noise, sidewalk, motor vehicles, all kinds of noises, NYPD is going to respond to you. House of worship. They have the noise complaints peaks into the summertime, and it's a non-emergency. It's a non-emergency, so that the police, the local police precinct, will respond when an officers are available and they're not responding to any kind of emergency situations. The Department of Environment and Environmental Protection, the DEP, they respond to noise from construction sites, dogs, and other animals, ice cream trucks, and food trucks, jingles, air conditioners, and rooftop circulation devices, lawn care equipment, factories, and boats. DEP responds by measuring the noise and issuing a violation if appropriate. Okay? The New York Peace Institute helps people involved in a dispute, like you have a neighbor, to resolve that difference, if you have a little problematic neighbor. If you're experiencing a conflict in any area of your life, you can get free and confidential assistance from a professional mediator. The New York Peace Institute was formerly known as the Safe Horizon Mediation Program. As the summer approaches, and as I mentioned this before, the noise complaints will soar. Please consider these tips. Follow me on. One, if you know of a chronic location, one that is known every summer to play loud music all weekend, all night, please contact your community affairs department at your local precinct. Two, if you see someone setting up big speakers outside, call 311 as soon as possible so that problem can be addressed before the noise starts. If you see or know, see anyone putting up any flyers promoting a backyard party, which is very popular, please bring them to your police precinct, the flyers that is, the Community Affairs Department. Another announcement here, the NAACP Jamaica Branch, they're holding a Know Your Risk, Know Your Rights workshop, 718-723-3653. Now, tonight's program, we're going to be talking about the Trevon Martin situation, the voter rights situation, stop and frisk, as well as police handling of our community. I got two guests here with me. One guy is a lawyer and one guy is an official. And I'm going to say it for I don't say it like that for now. Anyway, before I get into them, I would just like to bring you up to speed. Trevon Martin, if you don't know, was shot by shot by a police wannabe in Florida a couple months ago now. And the case has been all over the news. Many of you have participated in demonstrations. Many of you have voiced your opinions by making phone calls, I hope, or writing letters, I hope, to government officials. Several individuals have been involved in some level or the other in trying to bring some justice to Trevon Martin. Zimmerman, as a Puerto Rican, white, something between, somewhere there, shot the kid. Said that, you know, after being told to stand down, but figured that he has the right to do what he did, and so he shot the kid. Now the kid is dead. The workers or co-workers of the mother of Trevon Martin, they donated 34 weeks off to her. So in order for, her name is Sabrina Fulton, and so her co-workers donated this 34 hours time so that she can deal with this case, because if not, Florida is a very strange place. When you have situations, you have to report to work regardless. And so her co-workers came out and simply among themselves totaled up 34 weeks of off time so that she can handle her business. And I use that as the segue. Mr. Donald Vernon,
yes, sir,
attorney at law at Vernon and Associates, right?
Yes, sir.
There you go. And Donald has been out there in the trenches, Carry Pack,
which is a organization. It's a political action committee dedicated to enlightening our folks and actually supporting candidates to support our issues.
Who stand up in our corner.
Yes, sir.
And our corner meaning black folk corner. Not whether you have an accent or you don't have an accent. Whichever accent you have, that means that you're one of us.
Yes.
Okay? And next to him, we have Mr. Leroy Gadsden. I could never get that name right. Welcome to Caribbean Classroom.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's the first time I have you on as a guest in the studio. I had you out in the field at one point, but never in the studio as a guest. Welcome to Caribbean Classroom, gentlemen. So we have, now tonight I want us to do a kind of a broad sweep, because I want us to look at Trevon Martin. I want us to look at gun violence in our community, and I also want us to look at the police and how the police seem to be reacting in our, or responding or behaving in our environment, in our communities nowadays. It seems like they have taken sort of carte blanche liberties to go into your house. We have a case in the Bronx where the kid was in his grandmother's or mother's bathroom, and he went, that's where he got killed. We have another case again. I mean, the cases are numerous. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, another situation again, 5 dead bodies, 5 black people, and nobody seems to know what's going on. Now, I mean, either one of you can take this. Where are we, and what are we supposed to be doing in situations like Trevon Martin, in situations like the case in the Bronx, in situations like where we are being stopped, and for whatever reason we have our conviction is that we have a skin tone that is darker than most. Where are we right here, Mr. President or Mr. Attorney?
Well, if I may, I believe in terms of, you know, the question that you've posed, I think it's important that we start out by setting the foundation. And what I mean by that is to say that we have a situation where we ourselves have to recognize the purpose of the police in our respective communities. They're not there as an occupying force. They're not there to abuse us. They're not there to treat us as if we're less than human. They're there for the specific purpose, and we pay them to be there to improve the quality of life in our respective community. So in spite of how we may look at them, it starts with us. And that is that when we look at a police officer, that police officer needs to recognize that it's through our tax dollars that they're paid, that they're there not to abuse or to take advantage of or to profile us, but in fact to respond and to treat us in a way that would in fact allow our quality of life to be all that we want it to be.
But the cost is, what is it, courtesy, respect, responsibility?
Yes.
CPR?
Yes.
CPR.
CPR. We don't see a lot of CPR taking place, though, in many cases. And let's put it on the top here. We do have some police in our communities who do go out of the I won't say out of the way, but make sure that they're doing good policing work. Let's put that out front, right? And it's always one or two bad apples in the mix who is going to try to always upset the cart.
Okay. Well, I think when you look at that, if we look at the history of policing and some of the things Mr. Vernon was touching on a few minutes back, the police have never been sent out to really protect and respect the black community. If we look at the history of policing, from when we first got here from the beginning, police officers were opposed to those people working at night, and the black folks caught at night, supposed to be assumed to be slaves, were brought back and held in captivity until somebody from the plantation come and identify you and take you back. If you're going up to after the Civil War, law enforcement was the one that enforced property owners' law. Well, who's going to pick the cotton for free now? Well, let's call it sharecroppers, and you can't leave the plantation. You have people still having to run away at night. You have people that had all these unfair loan practices and buying property. It was law enforcement who enforced that.
And maintained it.
Yes, sir.
And kept us at bay.
For a property owner. Yes, sir. When you look at the civil rights era, it was law enforcement who had dogs and hoses and whips that were violating people's rights. Well, if you really want to get technical about it, there never was a period of time where we stopped being second-class slavery and say, well, let's try to repair the relationship between the black community and law enforcement. America have never done that, and I think we've seen the remnants of that. But I think, as you're saying, with people, we have to realize each one of us, and that's why I want people to come to our workshop on May 22nd, each one of us have the ability to stop and correct this. It's called accountability. You know, when we see the police officers mistreating young people, or either old people, it can be anybody now of color, what do we do as a person? Do we say
we're scared?
Okay, yes.
We don't want to intervene.
That's correct.
And wait a second, the police will say to you, you're breaking the law, you're interfering with police procedures,
yes,
right?
Yes, sir.
And so then we're scared to step out. We don't know that we could say something.
That's correct. And what we want to tell people, we don't want to challenge police, but then you should raise that issue. We had the police precinct community councils, your local organization, your pastor. You should say, listen, last Saturday I saw 4 guys just beat this guy, mistreat, rough him up. Start raising the issues. You know, if you go in a predominantly white community, and if you watch it, I've done this, you watch police behavior. NAACP people studied this. It's a difference how police treat people in that community. Some say it turns on racism, etc., but also you go out there and drag that white boy down the street, mama, dad, and every neighbor on the block going to be at the precinct office tomorrow morning, want to know what is going on.
I saw it in Brooklyn.
Yes, we have to take them.
Well, John, I must say that, and that's the point. It's a culture issue in terms of the police department. I don't believe that it's just individual police that happens to be a bad apple. There is a particular culture that's enforced or that supports some bad behavior. So yes, you do have those bad apples, but then those bad apples are protected when they overtly demonstrate bad behavior.
The top brass, in other words, from the top up, or from the top. Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah. You don't have legal permission.
Me and Mr. Vernon didn't even tag team. I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
But I have to piggyback on what he's saying. I think he's right on point. If you take example, Mr. Kelly, much respect for him as police commissioner, but of all the police blatant racism under the Kelly administration, you have not heard Mr. Kelly take one stance against abuse of black folks by the police or Hispanic folks.
But he can't do that, can he?
Yes, he can. And I can tell you, sir, yes, sir. Yes, he can.
Yes, he can.
If you look back at his first term in office, and we've studied this.
Thank you very much.
They had the Dirty 30. You remember that, the Dirty 30?
Yes, indeed.
In the Dirty 30, when they had that, excuse me, Mr. Kelly told the feds, before you lock up these officers at the 30th precinct, he came there and he ripped the badge off their shirt as they stood outside that precinct in cuffs. That sent a message throughout the department, you cannot have police corruption. We have seen under his watch some of the most horrific activity towards people.
In recent times.
Yes, sir.
In recent times.
But Mr. Kelly.
But why is that, though?
Okay, because it goes back to the race issue. They have not put the same level, I think, of respect of people of color. When you think about, we sat in that Sean Bell trial every day. If there ever was a time for people to step up in law enforcement administration and say, look, this is not police behavior, this is not professional police of how you treat people of color or any human being, was the time. Because in the testimony of that trial, though they did not testify with immunity, those police officers testified that they violated every police academy practice,
procedure,
every book. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And nobody from police branch said, this is an abomination, this is horrible. Nothing was that. We didn't fire these guys, some of those guys, until 4 years later. What kind of message that's in the police? One officer say, you know, hey, look, I saw that there was no return fire. He testified several times. I dropped the empty clip and reloaded. And they said, what you did? And I commenced to fire, and again, I saw movement in the back seat in the return fire. That alone should have had some response from the police commissioner that say, wait a minute, this is not police protection. So that protection comes in. There's a case now in federal court. Deborah Lawson brought a case in federal court in Brooklyn of police discrimination, and she is a former detective. Two other retired detectives brought this case up. And what she is saying, some of the most nasty language, says they treat people like animals in their anti-police unit. You have a captain have 5 shootings, 5 shootings, 2 dead. Say the discriminatory words. It's not enough to say, well, it's in court, let the courts handle it.
Does it stop at the commissioner level, or is it the mayor, or is there somebody above there that the governor?
Yeah. If I could just speak to that, I really believe that at the end of the day, you know, this culture is allowed to exist and persist and supported because we have not developed the political strength, our community, to make sure that a mayor that continues to keep a police commissioner in place that is unable to train his force to respect the community in which they serve, because we're unable to do anything about that in terms of the vote, that they feel like there is carte blanche to go ahead and continue that. The minute we start to put together the type of political infrastructure that could take down a council member, that could take down a mayor, that could put the sufficient pressure on the mayor that he will then look to his commissioners and say, listen, under no circumstances will this be allowed, because if it is allowed to continue, what will happen is that I won't have a job. And if I don't have a job, you're not going to have a job. Right. So at the end of the day, you know, I am one that always advocate that things happen to people that allows it to happen, who allow it to happen to them. And as much as the wrong, we've experienced great wrongs. Mr. Chamberlain was no more than an old man who pressed his medical button or his medical response alert to get some medical help, and police showed up.
And he's dead.
And he's dead. You know, he didn't do anything. So I'm not blaming Mr. Chamberlain for his own demise. I'm simply saying we know what the dangers are. We know that there's a history of discrimination, a history of treating our folks less than they deserve. And the question becomes, now that we know that, what do we do about it?
That's what I'm.
So my position is always that, you know, we have to challenge ourselves as well. You know, we respect the work of the NAACP and other organizations who are similarly situated, who are working to bring a sea change to this type of situation. But at the same time, we also must have some individual responsibility as it relates to our involvement in our community. And that's why initially I spoke about having the right mindset as to exactly who we are and who the police is and what their roles are in our community. Because if we understand that, and if we understand that we're not supposed to be afraid of them, we're not supposed to see them as an occupying force, we need to also develop our own culture and get on that. When you go home and you see something, take that badge number, take that card number, and write that letter. Report it to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. Take steps. Just don't go home and say, we can't, throw your hands up and say,
well, listen, Mr. Vernon,
I can't make it, you know, I can't make a difference.
Mr. Vernon, you could say that, but then when the last time I reported it, and next thing I know, I had 2 detectives at my door asking me a whole lot of questions. So then, I mean, and I you know, I don't want to get myself involved.
So answer the questions, and I think, you know, in general, I think that's what's plaguing our community. Much of us who can make a difference have decided that we're not getting involved. We're just going to take a step back, close my door, and pretend it's not happening. But
until it happens to you.
And that's my point, that yes, you do have to get involved, and yes, you do have to answer those questions when the police come. But if our foreparents had folded up and closed their door, John, where would we be today?
I'm talking you. Listen, you are watching Caribbean Classroom. Tonight we're talking police, we're talking you, we're talking your involvement. And I always do, and every time I do this program, this type program, I always encourage you. There is something that Mr. Gadsden just mentioned, the Community Police Precinct Council. That every precinct has the meeting once a month. And you will call your local precinct and find out when that meeting is. That is your power. That is the ultimate power that you have. And I'll give you an example of that before we get back into the conversation. You happen to see an officer or officers doing something that they're not supposed to do. And you make the notation like Mr. Vernon just said. You show up at that precinct council meeting. Well, I saw Officer Crow and Officer Mike was sitting on the corner of Baisley and wherever. And I saw them drinking beer and smoking cigarettes and doing all kinds of crazy things. You report that at that precinct council meeting. Next month, Officer Crow and Officer Mike has to show up at that council meeting and face you face to face. And again, you're going to file that report. Now, if every one of those, if everyone who saw them were to step forward and report them, those reports go into their records. After 2 or 3 or whatever the number of reports like that on the chart, they're off the force. They are off. They're not just moved to another precinct. They are off the department. They're from the department. They get fired in simple language. So you have power. Okay, so and I'm saying tonight is a night where we could bring some change to that power. You are watching Caribbean Classroom. Please give us a call. Let's go into the voting rights thing. And our power, the other end of our power, okay, where you mentioned before that we have that ability to take out and put in as to who we want. We see what happened with the Tea Party. We see what happened in the gay community. That even the president is now saying that, well, I don't say even the president, but the president is now coming around after he's thinking about it, that, you know, it's quite accepted as it were. On business side, I guess it is, because those of us who read the Bible say that we know what the Bible says, but then on the other side of the argument, we have, well, it's a difference between the church and the state. So we could separate one from the other. Okay. I'm not one way or the other of it, but you know, your gentlemen are the learned members of the stage right here.
Hey, so you one of the learned leaders of the state, sir. Let me talk once about involvement. I want to make sure we get one point clear if we talk about involving our power. The NAACP, the National Action Network, the ACLU, some of our local unions, we all coming together because this thing is affecting people's lives. And why I go that? Because this gives everybody a chance. We're not asking you to go out here and get in front of bullets. We want you to just come out, bring your children, bring your relatives. Let's send a message. Mr. Vernon keep talking about this power. We need to send a message to the next mayor. We will not accept this policy of police brutality and the whole thing with stop and frisk.
I'm going to say this to you.
Go ahead, sir.
And I know the tradition has been to march. I'm with Henry Clark. Marching is just a waste of shoe leather. In my Henry Clark, that's what I'm quoting him here. Yes. It's a waste of shoe leather and energy, good energy. Okay. That's my thing. Okay. Because I always say it like this. Okay, we march, and a lot of people show up at the march. And I'm not telling who want to go to the march, go to the march. Hit on this. Okay? Okay. But I'm saying that there has to be more than just go to the march.
Yes, sir.
There has to be some tangible action to follow that march, if that march is to make any sense.